Welcome to KYNDversation, a space for sacred dialogue, honest reflection, and deep listening. I'm your host, KYNDversation. KYNDversations was born from my own inner dialogue, my journey of spirituality through life's unfoldings, questions, and becoming. Along the way, I discovered something essential, that transformation often happens not in isolation, but in conversation. In this podcast, I sit with people from diverse faith traditions, spiritual paths, and lived experiences to explore one central question. What does devotion mean to you? And how does your relationship to the sacred shape your life? My hope is that each conversation becomes a light post for those who feel challenged, disconnected, or searching for belonging. And that through our shared reflection, you might find courage, clarity, and deeper connection to yourself. Wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. Welcome to KYNDversations. I'm so excited that I get an opportunity to talk to people about their devotion to themselves and to the God of their understanding. Our next guest, I'm thrilled to have. Her name is Rev Aaliyah. She is an interspiritual minister, artist, and writer whose work lives at the crossroads of spirituality, culture, and creative practice. She currently serves as facilitating dean at the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, where she mentors seminarians and helps shape the formation of emerging interfaith clergy. Her broader body of work centers on what she calls praxis for everyday life, the disciplined integration of spiritual insight with action, creativity, and responsibility. Through her internal development model, the Monastery Within, she develops teachings, writing, and artistic projects that explore how people cultivate inner clarity while engaging a complicated world. Drawing from Buddhist humanism, Black intellectual traditions, contemplative practice, and global pilgrimage experiences, Rev Aaliyah creates spaces through dialogue, art, and ministry, where people can rediscover coherence, courage, and devotion in their lives. Her work invites a demanding question: what are the strategies we can employ to embody holiness and consecration through our everyday lives? I love that question. Also, make sure you go get her latest published work or check it out online. It's called To the Bone, a soul spa self-check-in to help us all reclaim ourselves in luxurious presence. Let's welcome Rev Aaliyah.
Wow.
Hey.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being who you are. So how you be? How are you doing?
I'm really juicy right now. I feel full and content in this moment.
Full and content are both really good.
Mm-hmm.
I am so grateful for your yes to have this conversation. I'd love for you to take us on a journey, Rev Aaliyah, of back to your childhood. What was the spiritual atmosphere like growing up in a Pentecostal context?
Ooh, we would say for real.
Same. You got to say it twice.
Oh, yes. Saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, and that with a mighty burning fire. And it's still like fire shut up in my bones. It really is. I can't help it. That thing is real.
Yes, it is.
I definitely am in the tradition, the lineage. I'm so privileged. I'm so grateful for my great-grandmother and my grandmother. They were mothers in the church, but before they were mothers in the church, they were literal missionaries. Like in the neighborhoods where they lived, they would go door to door, and they would have like church in the garage, devotional services in the garage. Those planted seeds for churches that still exist in parts of California. They were confidants and advisors to pastors, especially young pastors with families trying to establish their livelihoods and their ministries at the same time. But for me, they were people that felt like they knew God for real. And maybe in the beginning of my faith walk, they were God.
Mm.
Certainly,
Mm.
God's on earth representatives, very real to me. But they kind of apprenticed me in faith. They took me seriously. I
Mm.
had my first real experience of faith on my own. I would say at 8 years old is when I went up for that altar call
Yeah.
and received Jesus Christ as my personal savior. And I remember telling my great grandmother, she said, "Well, how do you feel?" We're at home after church at this point. We done ate and everything. And she said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I just feel like there's like water rushing through me. I felt like I was being washed over and over and over again." And she was like, "She got it for real, you know?" So they received that. They took my faith as a real thing and
Mm.
invested in me and helped me to take it seriously for myself.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. And so then I started, like, I was my grandmother's armor bearer. She was an evangelist in southern, I think it was the second jurisdiction in the state of Mississippi, southern Mississippi, an elect lady. You know, they wouldn't allow women to be ordained as ministers. You have to, still, this is true in the Church of God in Christ. And so she did what she could in terms of having a license as an evangelist. And so she would be invited to go and
Mm.
preach, speak. And she always started with a song and a testimony. And it was never in the pulpit, but I would hold her Bible and I would carry her notes and I would make sure there was water or a handkerchief or something like that. Now it's my little job to partner with her on the road and the behind the scenes of ministry, the quiet conversations, the let me talk to you right quick, let me put something in your hand right quick, um, all the unseen things that don't happen in the congregation openly, but are just as much a part of ministry. I got to see, and then I think the climax for this as a child really happened when I turned 13. My grandmother started taking me to these conferences, and I don't know if you know about this, but the youth church be popping. And
Oh yeah.
child, we had church all night. You talking about praying all night long. And so
Mm.
I literally we're talking about people from all over the country. Of course, it's a national convention in Indianapolis, and my grandmother could not find me, and I had lost all track of time. And of course, she don't know what's happening. I'm 13. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And she found me in prayer, just like drunk in the Holy Ghost. And
Mm.
so I couldn't help myself. And there she was like unhappy with me at first. But then when she saw the state that I was in, she said, "Oh, something is really, really happening here."
Mm.
And I think that's what gave me the sense of like, it's not just what they tell me to do, but like now I have a direct, a more clear channel to receive the comfort and instruction, guidance, direction from
Mhm.
my own faith that leads to how we got to here. But those are the very beginning pieces.
Those are big pieces too. You made me think about my grandmothers and
Mm-hmm.
how often that generation were community mothers,
Mm-hmm.
supporting not only their families but the children of other families, as well as parents at times. I love that you have this rich opportunity to travel with your grandmother. I remember I grew up Church of God, and so I remember going to Bible studies when they were in the homes. My grandmother would often have the saints, we would call the older folks saints in my context, and they would have a moment of anointing. So you bring those memories back for me. And I love that at 8 years old, your grandmother saw something in you. And
Mm-hmm.
then at 13, you have this experience, direct encounter, creative encounter, as Howard Thurman would call it, with the divine that allows you to remember that you have this connection that you get a chance to really explore. At 13, having that direct connection and experience, did the texture of your understanding of God begin to shift?
Mm-hmm.
Or were there any tensions based on what you were experiencing, and what you inherited
Mm-hmm.
in foundational faith?
Yes. Um, there definitely the tension between the permission that I felt inside and what the constraints I felt like I was in as a girl in the Church of God in Christ tradition, some of the outward displays of holiness, as it was called, felt very constrictive. It was also, I don't know how or why, but uh, I was able to observe who wasn't in the room, who wasn't invited
Mm,
to be in the room. That felt incomplete to me, so that was a tension. Um, and I felt like that the God inside of me could accommodate and even welcome way more questions than were tolerated in congregational space or even a collective study space. That what was important in that faith tradition was being right. And I wanted to be curious. I wanted a space to help me discover this. And it was more like adopt this, take this on, this
mm,
way of being like, these are the markers of holiness, these are the markers of consecration. um, and the tenets of that were great. Yes, build your faith through study, study to show yourself approved, be in dialogue, constant dialogue about the word. The focus was on the word. It wasn't like part-time salvation. My family's, the lineage is like we saved all the time, like from morning till night. So he wasn't gonna catch my grandmother out someplace where saved folks didn't go. And
mm,
that was the same expectation. But of course I was young and wanting to know what's going on out there.
mhm.
What am I avoiding again?
Yeah,
Introduce
yeah,
me to
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
it.
You mentioned this dichotomy that I grew up with too: the saved and unsaved.
Hmm.
At what point did you begin to start shedding some of these theological beliefs that you inherited that your soul wasn't quite aligned with?
Oh, this is where the story takes a real turn. Yeah. Okay, so I'm at Oral Roberts University.
Woo!
Uh, yeah, studying evangelism and missions, and financial aid gets complicated. Somewhere in there, everybody at ORU, and I'm generalizing, but the people who went there will agree with me. I think for the most part, everybody was on the marriage track. Nobody dated to get to know people. You didn't really hold hands because you could be holding the somebody else's husband or wife's hand. So there wasn't really permission to date. It was more like permission to hear from God if this is the person you're supposed to marry or not. I did that. I got married. That school is in Tulsa. We relocated back to my hometown, LA, and life got real, right? It's like, oh, I didn't really know this person. We have
Mm,
a child on the way. How are we going to make this work? The marriage ends up dissolving, and I find an even bigger tension inside, which is like, I'm in therapy, and for some reason, what's coming out of my mouth is, I think I might be gay. How do
mm,
you know if you're gay or not? And there was no room for that in my
mm,
belief system at that time. Around the same time, my dad and I were starting to get closer. I didn't grow up with him as a constant presence, a reliable presence, but I knew that he practiced Buddhism. And the way that that had been brought to me was like Buddhism gave him a way to not have to deal with the guilt of
mm,
not parenting me, and also himself. He was gay. And so that was presented to me as though that were an escape hatch from his responsibility to me and the family. And so, of course, that was a negative, and of course, they positioned it as, you're going to hell. That's devil worship. Those altars are devilish altars. But I was curious enough to study some things in his house, some material that he had, publications, books, and whatnot. And I really I was challenged by what I was reading, some things that were just about everyday life, just how you live, a philosophical approach that gave me answers to questions I had long held, and they felt like peace. It didn't feel like rebellion. It didn't feel like sin felt, like I had been taught to identify sin inside. And so I kept checking, like, am I just peacefully going to hell? Like, what am I doing? So I tapped in with my beloved, a minister who has just recently passed away, Bishop Carlton
Mm,
Pearson.
mm,
And we started an email communication. I wrote him right around the same time he had been labeled a heretic for saying that God is not a Christian. And that work around everybody's going to heaven, we just don't know it yet. Like he was just starting to
mm,
work through that philosophy, through those ideas, through that revelation. And so we exchanged. He would help me, and I would, offer encouragement or support for where I felt like his work might be going. And he said to me, even if it's wrong, some things you have to let, even if your understanding is that this is wrong, you might have to just let the wheat grow with the tare. It might
mm.
not be time to separate. Just kind of
Wow.
see. And he gave me permission to be
That's
patient,
such great pastoral care.
isn't it?
Wow. Wow. Let the wheat grow with the tear. Stay in there and see what it might become.
He convinced me that God had enough patience for God's creation
Mm,
to let it unfold. We are all unfolding. We don't come here just, okay, get right, we're saved, now we're perfect, and just continue on the path of perfection, as we know. But that's not the impression that I had about what my spiritual responsibility was to myself. I thought it was to keep myself along a path that led to righteousness and right for righteousness' sake. But he was giving me permission to explore my life and to see what faith would do, how it would unfold, what I might see differently. Um, and so at that time when it was clear my marriage wasn't going to reconcile, I had been going to the church of my childhood, and I really didn't feel like they offered pastoral care to me or my son. And I just sat with the hurt of that, of not being called, of not being checked on. Like I had been in this church since I was 12 years old. And
wow.
here I was almost 22 in a young marriage, very young person, and just feeling like they didn't care. I could get up there and sing for praise and worship as long as I didn't miss a rehearsal, you know, never mind the turmoil that was happening in my house. But the Buddhist community reached out to me in a way that I had not met people that were so consistent, so cheerful, so caring and genuine, like not just cheerful like with an affect, but from a place of satisfaction. I could tell they had got caught hold of something.
Mm,
So that was really the beginning when I started to chant for myself in front of the Gohans my father's altar. I felt myself immediately in the body of an eagle soaring high above all of the problems that I thought I had. And that sense of empowerment was worth like 5 hours of like beseeching, right? I was like only petitioning in prayer. I wasn't really claiming from a place of faith. Now we would say name it and claim it, but the mechanics of that weren't really spelled out enough that I felt like I could replicate that on my
mm,
own. So I could
mhm.
take the high in the church service and lay hold of something, but I didn't know how to walk that out Monday through Friday. Buddhism gave me a philosophy and a way, a practice to do morning and night, including the study and the dialogues with the other practitioners that would help me get my footing and really see without trying to get me to righteousness just what's happening right now.
Mhm.
And so that was the beginning of me um, entering a contemplative path, giving myself permission to not be a Christian. Could that be? um, to not, at least to not be a person who was just born in sin and always needed to be on the watch for sin
Mhm.
in my life,
Mhm.
right? But to really engage life itself from a different plane, not like I'm coming in from behind. And if not for the blood of Jesus, where would I be? I
Yeah.
didn't throw that out, but I went I kind of went around it. Like, what else is here in this
Mhm.
same room?
Mm. That's
So that,
powerful.
mhm.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I am still sitting with you being able to chant in front of your father's Gohan and at his altar.
Mm.
You because altars are powerful spaces. I believe that they're portals, and you have this portal before you that has been primed by your father's chants and prayers. You follow the lineage of Nichiren Buddhism, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes Nichiren Buddhism unique from like Zen Buddhism or other monastic forms of Buddhism?
It's really action oriented. And for one, this organization, Soka Gakkai, is all a lay organization. So there's no hierarchy of like ordination or license that somehow bestows someone with spiritual authority. So whether it changes the relationship of spiritual care to one of co-responsibility, companionship, rather than instruction and direction, right? Um, and it really was philosophical in nature in that I could um, explore the doctrine, but the doctrine at the heart of it was really about me acknowledging my potential for fundamental enlightenment and fundamental darkness.
Mm. Ooh. Mm.
And it gives practical steps for confronting and overcoming fundamental darkness through faith. So not just using faith to get stuff, but becoming more and more of my true self in expression and demonstration. And it was like there's no hiding, right? It starts with 100% responsibility. So rather than saying, "Would you help me?" I'm saying, "I'm determined." Right.
Mm.
I have a hint of something, of a different way before me, another possibility, a different outcome, rather than the one that it seems like destiny has carved out for me. And from my fierce determination, from my gut of my guts, I'm forging a path forward. Nichiren Buddhism gives you permission to do that and says the reason that you can do that is because there's a law of interconnectedness and phenomena that gives rise to everything. Now, from our interspiritual perspective, I could call that thing love,
Hmm.
I could call it life,
Yeah.
I could call it a lot of things, right? But Nichiren Buddhism says that that is a mystic law, that it's not something that we go, okay, we know it functions like this and like this and like this.
Yeah.
um, and that we really rediscover it through our encounters with it, through creating instances in our everyday lives for that to show up. We're inviting it, we're invoking it, we're calling it forward in our experience,
Mhm.
and um, being the determining factor for what happens next, not from a place of control, but from a place of responsibility. What am I focused on? What am I focused on bringing forth from my life? What does this obstacle present me with the opportunity? So we're almost like constantly in training mode. So
Mm.
our contemplation is really about our action, our behavior, not about the philosophy. I'm not thinking about whether or not the Buddha was enlightened in a certain way. I'm thinking, how do I embody the ability to engage others with openness, without judgment?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's really about how do I become more of myself using this obstacle or this challenge that's right in front of me, um, and transcending it through faith on a day to day basis. And
Mhm.
that feels active for me.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
gives me a channel to devote myself, like a groove that I can carve of devotion in my heart and in my life.
Mhm. You
Mhm.
make me think of the Christian scripture, "Faith without works is dead." This is the work, right? And I'm really curious, Aaliyah, when it comes to these spiritual hygiene practices that you engage in. as it relates to Nietzsche and Buddhism. How have they informed the Christianity that you grew up in, or and fortified any practices that you still maintain, if you maintain any practices of Christianity?
Well, one thing that I would say, being a Buddhist who's also clergy, interspiritual clergy at that, keeps bringing to me is these words of holiness and consecration, especially in times like these, because Nichiren was one. We're taught that Nichiren was a person who was completely single-minded in his faith. And he felt that he had uncovered something that was the key to saving the people and the land where he lived. And that was of utmost importance to him. He was willing to be exiled. He faced a great deal of persecution as a result of that, many attempts on his life, and in extreme conditions. And so I think about these conditions that many of us find ourselves in now: internal conditions, external conditions. And if Buddhism is right, that there's oneness, and that there's a oneness between the self and the environment, that one gives rise to the other, gives rise to, like, there's this completely reciprocal relationship, then my responsibility is to be contributive, to be generative, and to be not compassionate just in feeling, but in the way that I engage my environment. That requires for me single-mindedness, because in this world there's nothing but distractions all around, and there's very few places, even well-meaning places, where they're not giving me more work to do, to be like optimizing my time, optimizing your personality, your relationships, learn how to monetize this, maximize that. It all seems to veer right back outside. But when I think about holiness now, consecration now, it's really the mindset of single-mindedness. What is my life for? And Buddhism keeps giving me clarity around that on a daily basis. What is the point of it? And how do I demonstrate that point right now, today, in the circumstance that I find myself in? And that single-mindedness feels like, if we take religion out of it, it feels like extreme loyalty to my sense of purpose. It feels like a deep devotion and commitment to the drive to have a life of meaning, a life that contributes to the environment that we're all sharing, that somehow improves it. Um, so that's how I'm interacting. Christianity really doesn't show up in a faith way as much as it used to. It's really more so a cultural experience for me, and a way to like reclaim my lineage and embody that from where I sit now. So before, I used to kind of wrestle with like, should I hold on to this or that? And now I feel clarity around what I believe, what I hold to be true, what's useful for me about these beliefs. I'm also open to the different languages that I hear other Christian folks share, people who are in different styles and means of Christianity, like Quakers, for instance, right? Like can sit, I don't experience much of a difference in our practice of just, sitting with the silence, sitting and listening, the power of quiet to transform our insides, gives me a space to observe my life honestly. But other than contemplation, I think practice wise, it's pretty much Nichiren Buddhism, and of course our interfaith, interspiritual philosophies as well. Openness to others is a spiritual practice in and of itself.
It is. It is. I love that you talked about what single-mindedness means for you, which is really this clarity around your ever-evolving purpose. As you move through life's unfolding, I think so many fundamentalist Christians might believe that it's double-minded to practice inner spirituality or be
Mm-hmm.
to another spiritual pathway. But that's not what double mindedness means. And I would be curious to go back to the Christian text and just research the historical context of that. But you make me consider that. For those who aren't familiar with Buddhism, when you talk about sitting at this altar in front of your father's Gohanzen, what does altar space mean for you now? And what is the Gohanzen?
Mm-hmm. Oh, altar. This is so beautiful, Kendra, because I've been a lot of places, as you know, travel a lot. And what automatically comes to mind is all the altars I've built
Mm,
um, in the places that I've been. I've got one right behind me. And how interesting it is to craft one knowing that I might be in a place for 48 to 72 hours. Um, Altar practice has become so important that at minimum, I have to put out a fresh bowl of water for myself.
mhm,
Altar is, for me, the spaciousness for remembrance, a place for coming home to, now I'm going into the Buddhist part of this, to polish my mirror, to look in the mirror and to polish it.
mm,
That's where the Gohanzen comes in. So Nichiren inscribed his enlightenment, his awareness of that fundamental law of nature that he thought was mystical and was the reason why all phenomena occurs. And
mm,
so he inscribed the inner workings of that and aspects of a fundamentally enlightened life in in what he called sumi ink. Right, he did this in Japanese calligraphy,
mm,
and uh, we are when we take membership in the organization. Each member has an opportunity. It's usually per household, but let's just say it's individuals, receive that scroll that they then put into a protective box that then
mm,
sits on an altar space. And typically there's a receptacle or a place for rice, which is symbolic, for fresh water, which is symbolic, some kind of plant, green plant. Um, our beads are there. We burn incense there. And there's usually some candles as well. So you've got the elements, right? You've got earth, water, air, fire. Um, and so some of this is not just from a Buddhist lineage. You find this across practice, different symbols, but
mhm,
the Gohanzen is meant to be an object of focus
mm,
and devotion. So it's not Nichiren's life I'm praying to, it's Aaliyah's fundamentally enlightened life.
beautiful.
But it's not a denial or a bypass of evil. It includes the evil stuff on there, but there's a hierarchy on it where the fundamental enlightenment or the law at work in my life harmonizes those so-called evil or harmful
Mm,
or
mm,
dark aspects of my life. So what I'm really doing is polishing by reminding myself I've decided that my life is um, an embodiment of that law. That what gives life, what gives rise to my life, what gives me potential to create a new history for my life today is that law. When I employ that law, when I use that law to make decisions, to ground myself, center myself, to see other people through, when I use that law of, it talks about many, many, many possibilities in a single moment of life. So while my judgment
mm,
might go, Buddhism says, yes, one reaction. What are the other
mm.
2,999 possibilities? which
Mm,
is only a
mm.
symbolic number to say infinite, right?
Right, right.
But it keeps bringing me back to a prime point, and that's the purpose of the Gohanzen, to help me to see myself clearly and to use it as a catapult to actually, my father used to say, chant until you feel like you jumped into that thing, until it becomes 3D
I love it.
around you, right? There's no special power or magic in the paper that it's written on. The power really comes from the force of my life going, yeah, I've decided that I agree with that today. And I'm going to use that agreement to create something fresh and new in my experience today. So
Ooh,
that's
you gave me so much, Rev. You gave me so much, but it is good. I am thinking about the law that you mentioned, and for me, I think there's so much division inside um, religious landscapes because I feel like a lot of us talk about the same thing, but it has a different name. So I will make the law synonymous with God. I will make the law synonymous with the quantum field. I will make the law synonymous with self. Because to know self is to know God, and to know God is to know self. And so I love that this portal, this Gohanzen, is representative of you really being intentional about aligning with the highest good for Aaliyah's life
mm-hmm.
and what that looks like. Thank you for laying that out. I want to go back to this fundamental light and fundamental dark, this both andness. There are oftentimes that we will think of darkness as antithetical to the journey of becoming. When I have found that the darkness is just as relevant as the light, just as necessary as the light. How have lessons of light and dark showed up in your life that make you embrace the both and the polarity of light and dark?
Yeah. I think, if you're what we used to call it for real, right? If you're really for real, you're going to run into your humanity. Faith does not allow me to outrun my humanity. And I make decisions. Paul, for instance, talked about, right? The things that I would, I don't do. And those things that I wouldn't do, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Golly, I don't want to do that. Don't sin. But when you do, you have a way out, right? There's a necessary confrontation so that my faith stays relevant. And some of those disappointments of like ways that I've filed something up or looked at something incorrectly, it was obvious that my judgment was skewed
Mm-hmm.
because I was upset or for whatever reason I didn't have enough information. I wasn't mature enough to see my other choices, or I just wanted to raise some hell that day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
um, there's so many reasons why and ways that fundamental darkness can appear. Fear is an obvious one, right? Anger. I used to have a temper that felt scary to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think enough of making those kinds of where it's like the weight of harm, because Buddhism talks about cause and effect similarly to Christianity, but takes it to another level and says, and so what causes are you making? Like, be careful, be cautious, be aware of that, and ask us, are we responsible for the causes that we're making? Are we just out here doing stuff? So unfortunately, sometimes it is through the impact of my inner negativity that I say, I guess I don't want to come that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, other ideas come in, right? Through interspirituality, I learn about the shadow, which is another way of working with the same thing, right? How do I not shun that darkness, which Buddhism says is not necessary because revealing inner light transforms the dark.
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a depth to my life now that I have more experience. I think I've got some spiritual authority that I can claim and hear about what I'm saying yes to or no to from my experience of saying yes and no to things that weren't the causes that I wanted to make for my life. And not because I'm afraid of karma, but because I'm the only one that's going to deal with every single one of these choices. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what do I owe myself? What do I owe what I actually do want to experience? The more that I see that it's possible to have what I'm desiring and to live the way that I'm hoping to live, that it's not impossible. The seed for all of this joy, peace, wisdom is already present in me. Then I'd want to spend my time focused on, well, what helps me to use that. So then the fundamental darkness becomes a means to reveal more light, especially if I'm
Mm-hmm.
polishing my mirror. I have access to the wisdom to see that more clearly. When I'm in fundamental darkness and feeling bad about that, wow, I feel heavy, I feel gloomy, maybe even depressed. My life condition, my countenance doesn't feel strong enough to deal with the pressure. And maybe I'm intimidated by whatever's happening in my life. There's a means to overcome that, but it's not by bypassing it. It's by starting from the negativity, um, and letting the negativity reveal the opportunity inherent in it. A Course in
Mm-hmm.
Miracles talks about this. Fear itself is a witness to love. Is when we
Mm.
feel the fear that you go, oh, the contrast makes you aware. It's love that's missing. And if there
That's
was no love, then we just fear. It's like you have to just sit it,
mm.
but we don't. So I think that working with fundamental darkness and light has really given me the ground to feel more centered and more harmonious, less anxious is probably a better way to say that. Less anxious about the darkness because I fouled up enough to know that I'm not alone. I'm not alone,
Mhm. That's
and
good.
that my current behavior can help to correct past mistakes.
I love that. I am thinking about the person right now that might be listening to this and maybe holding this theological framework of the devil. And I am wondering for your own journey, how did you begin to what was your journey of releasing these theological concepts that didn't serve you to open up to the revelations provided through Nietzsche and Buddhism? What was the journey to release the devil, to release sin as we're taught in traditional church spaces?
I think A Course in Miracles helped a lot with that, honestly, Kendra, because it gives another interpretation of these scriptures that have, like, for me at least, feels like they were beat into my psyche.
Mhm.
Um, and the philosophy of Nietzsche and Buddhism, like whatever you practicing for everybody, I'm like, I don't expect people to say, oh, Nietzsche and Buddhism is the way. But we tell our students all the time, you have to study.
Mhm.
You're not going to change your mind just thinking about the stuff that you've already heard before. We have to hear new stuff, and so I really thank God for curiosity, um, and for enough space inside where I could become aware and then notice enough where I could come to a decision. I noticed I was uncomfortable. It didn't rub me the right way every time I thought about it in terms of sin or an external devil or something like that. I
Mhm.
wasn't cool with where that seemed to leave me, like helpless, if not for something else external to me.
Mhm.
And from the point of view of universality, it's like, what is principally happening here in these stories and these allegories and these assertions of doctrinal assertions? And like, uh, what can I take from that that's still useful? I mean,
Mhm.
it really was the point of view of a person who studies, not just a person who's wrestling with what does it mean. I couldn't wrestle endlessly. I had to actually put something new in there. So I will say that there were a couple of books that really helped me to get it and or start to allow myself a different way to relate to the concepts of sin and
Mhm.
hell and devils and all of that. And I think that book is called The Mysteries of Life and Death by Daisaku Ikeda. And it really talks about the Buddhist view on heaven and hell, on sin, on an external
Mm.
God, and explains the Buddhist cosmology of that so that I could at least hear something different and go, huh, that feels peaceful. I noticed the peace.
Mm.
It didn't feel like I was running from correction. I've had that before. Didn't feel like that. It felt like I was being introduced to something that could um, give that a new purpose, give sin a new purpose. Also, I'll say that Christianity itself has some mixed signals, mixed messages on what's sin and the devil and all of that, and how much of that is lore, how much of that is passed down stories. I'll leave it at that, and how much of that is like truly part of the tenets of that faith. And so it really kind of depends on the teacher that you're listening to. Little Teresa of Avila was like such a precious teacher for me in her innocence, her approach to her shortcomings. It wasn't all judgment and sin and gloom and doom. She wasn't talking about a fear of hell. She was talking about, so precious, she was talking about losing connection.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She's talking about not being as open to transformation as her heart desired for her to be. So, little tidbits along the way, but I would say that all encompassing is study, like really engaging my curiosity with um, just putting my attention towards aspects of teachings that gave another way to look at it, enough to find a path that felt peaceful, that
Mm.
felt integrated, that gave me access to spiritual power, and also a testimony of overcoming where I thought I might be stuck behind, well, the devil did this or that. It's like, I'm
Mm.
tired of the devil determining what happens to me.
Yes.
Uh, Buddhism has devils too, but they're symbolic for the darker functions of our own lives and in the lives of others. And what I came to find, Kendra, is that Satan, the devil, or the devil as a Leah, or whomever is in power, one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not that different functionally. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in that way, even though I don't use it for my personal belief system, it is useful to know that language and to be comfortable with people's acceptance of a devil or sin or what have you as not being a block to
Yeah.
their ongoing enlightenment. Like however
Mhm.
you see it,
That's good.
we could still beat the devil, whether it's internal, external, whatever his name
Mhm.
is or her name is or its name is.
Absolutely. I don't ever remember like I used to when I was younger, the exact scripture. I just remember the words when I think of the scripture that says evil comes out of the heart of man. It doesn't come outside of ourselves. It's within us,
Yeah.
just as much as the good is within us. I'm also thinking about as you talk this opportunity to be curious about other sacred texts and pathways. I think sometimes when people mention the scripture who identify along the lines of Christian fundamentalism, studying to show thyself approved, they think it's just the Bible.
Yeah.
The world is so large, God is so expansive, and all of these religions and faiths have come together to make meaning of this God that's outside of us as well as inside of us. So I really think it's beautiful that you allowed yourself to be open in that way. I think about my own theological framework opening up around God, around heaven and hell, around sin was when I went to Hillside Truth Center in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And encountered Dr. Rocco Errico and Dr. Barbara King. And Dr. Rocco Errico is fluent in Hebrew and Aramaic. And so he was breaking down the scriptures of the Old Testament and the New in ways that I had never been taught before because he had an Eastern understanding of these languages that my church didn't have access to. And so I'm really grateful for your witness of what it means to be courageously curious. Because I think so many people who have inherited a faith that is very binary, that is constricting, they can be scared sometimes to, a lot of times, to start moving in the pathway of their soul's calling. Now, I want to go, you said you went to Oral Roberts, you got married, got divorced, started being open to Buddhism, started discovering your sexuality in a new way. How did you make it? Because we met at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, right? How did you make it to this interfaith, interspiritual seminary? Tell me about that, Aaliyah. And how
Okay.
old were you when you got to One Spirit?
Okay. 2010. I think I was 33.
Mm.
Um, well, one thing was that when I was at Oral Roberts, I had a dear friend. We've lost touch, but she's a dear friend. I always treasure her in my heart. Angela said to me, God is not afraid of your humanity.
Come
Thank
on.
God for the psychology majors at the Christian school because she gave a little balance, because we were definitely the kind of people who prayed about how light or dark the toast should be before we put the bread in the toaster. Like,
Mm.
it's serious.
You said
And
how light or dark the toast should
the
be before
toast,
the coat.
the
Wow.
bread in the toaster. Yes, we was like, Lord, have your way, Lord. What would you have us do? I mean, we didn't take a step, And so the other thing was that she said, God is not offended by your humanity, which flew in the face of everything I had been taught, that my very body was an offense to God and needed to be somehow purified or kept holier, cleaner than I could possibly ever keep it, which is
Yeah.
why I needed salvation and the Holy Spirit and to keep a clean life and, all the things I had to do to keep sin off my back, to keep that monkey off my back. So I think those two things, I never want to forget that I had somebody who gave me the courage to ask some different questions, because I was definitely one of those law-abiding Christian citizens. I got to One Spirit through Reverend Andriette Earl, who was at the time assistant pastor at East Bay Church of Religious Science in Oakland, California.
Mm.
I have been part of a regional organizing core group of a national organization, a network of social justice leaders called Be Present, that's based in Atlanta.
Mm.
And some sisters that I knew from that organization, we were all in like a peer support group, and we're all like spiritually minded, curious about the same age. And this sister, Reverend Andrea Earl, has started a series on Harriet Tubman in church. I had never heard of such a thing. And
Mm.
so we all went. I wasn't necessarily open to the philosophy of science in mind. Like, I wasn't intrigued by that, but I was intrigued by this idea of Harriet Tubman as a way shower, as a spiritual model, not just as a Black history figure.
Mhm.
And so I started to see, well, what are the spiritual lessons I can learn from people who touch me this deeply, who's obviously I'm standing on their shoulders. In that church, of course, they have this magazine called Science of Mind magazine, and at the time, One Spirit was advertising in that magazine. So I picked up one of those because I'm thinking I can go deeper on my own. Back to the
Mhm.
study, chock full of study material in that magazine. But that ad would not leave me alone. I mean, that thing wrestled with me day and night. I felt like Jacob and the angel, and I started to get mad. I'm like, why do I care about this ad so much? I'm not nobody's minister. I'm a Buddhist and I just want to do what I do. And I noticed that I was doing a lot of arguing with a piece of
Mm.
paper, and something said, just go to the website and see what it says. Little by little, I was like, uh-oh. This thing is like, it's not done. It's not like, oh, good. Okay, you saw about it. It was like, I wonder if I should apply. So step by step, I got closer and closer to application. I prolonged it as long as I could. But back to that curiosity, I was like, why am I having such a... And I realized that I felt lonely. I wanted to have conversations about
Mm.
spiritual things that I didn't really feel like I could have. I wanted to talk about the intersections of these different belief systems. And I felt like I was becoming more fluent and being multilingual, but I really
Mm-hmm.
didn't have anybody else to speak these different languages in one conversation with. And I thought that One Spirit might give me permission to love God as much as I did, because at the time I was really afraid that I was a zealot. And I was one of those people that was a little too into God and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. And I hoped that they might provide a little order to that side of me, that part of me, and actually what it did was gave me permission to let it take over.
Yeah, I love that. What do you carry with you from your interfaith seminary experience, and why is interfaith important? Why is inner spirituality important?
Yeah, without interspirituality, we don't. I don't know if there's a way to access the truth in all of um, our ways of looking at love, of life, God, or not including God, our spiritual systems without compromise, right? Without sacrifice. Interspirituality gives us wholly everything without having to agree or disagree, without having to judge any aspect of it. We can accept and even encounter. I can encounter your faith through your faith, through my relationship to you, my respect for what you're sharing with me. Interspirituality helps to breed open mindedness,
Mm-hmm.
patience, um, the creating a brave and safe container for exposing, for teaching, for sharing what we're holding inside of us as our belief systems and our inner philosophies, our way of going about our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what Rev Diane Burke gave to me in seminary was really how to open a space for other people's discovery, how to
Mm-hmm.
be a space for my own discovery. um, my first year dean was like insistent. I had a right to the time and space to contemplate, that I was not called to this path um, only to suffer that desire, but that I could choose to indulge it. And that was actually my responsibility as someone called to the path, to permit myself the space and the time and to let it expand, to not just like keep it as a corner of my life, but to let it be how to approach my life is
Yeah.
through the fruits of contemplation. um, Rev Diane Burke also really instilled in us that our service had a place, that it wasn't all outward, just like community service, volunteering, although it's a huge part of it, but the spirit of contribution. How do you be a generative
Mm-hmm.
presence? And especially in the face of disunity, disharmony, how do we hold the line on
Yeah.
the interspiritual principle of oneness, which is fundamental to interspirituality? Oneness in terms of equal importance, not identical.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that met the philosophy I'd already had with Buddhism and the social justice and leadership development I had encountered through Be Present. And I took all of that, and at first it was just a calling to love spirit, love life, love with more clarity, to be about my mission without feeling like I had to camouflage that as ambition for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I think interfaith is fundamental to building um, solidarity in society as it is right now, because it's not just about religion. It really is about what makes each one of us feel alive, and how we respect that in each other, how we hold that as a treasure for Kendra's life. That's good enough for me. And I encounter that treasure through your experience of it as I
Mm-hmm.
build relationship with you.
Yeah.
There's no shortcutting that. It's
Mm-hmm.
gradual trust building, cross differences, without having to jump through the hoop of my judgment first. I can set that aside. And it's an attitude of embrace first. And
Mm-hmm.
it's acknowledging the mystery up front. I don't know everything about your faith. Would you teach me? And as you're teaching me about the faith, I learn what it is about you that draws you to it and what keeps you
Mm-hmm.
there and what might even take you beyond it. So it's a practice of solidarity that feels very relevant to the times that we're in. That's why I'm hooked on
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. I agree with everything that you named. One thing that I think is really beautiful about your life is the way that you have um, really divested in large extents from the matrix that we live in. And what I mean by that, for those who don't know you, is that you have this life of travel to a variety of destinations around the world, to be intentional about your own devotional's call, in terms of honoring that spark within you, and where it's taking you. Talk to us about your travels over the past, is it 2 or 3 years, and how you got on this journey of being able to move from place to place around the world to experience other cultures, other faiths, so on and so forth.
Okay, where's my Kleenex? This is already about to make me a bumbling, crying. um, so yeah, this was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done because I was a young mother and I got married at 19 and I was a mom at almost 21. And so by the time I started even thinking about this kind of traveling, my son was in his teenage years. And I did not see how it was possible on with the income that I had and the responsibilities that I had. And so it just seemed like a one day, someday type of promise I had given to myself. One of those, when the kids are grown, this is what I'll do
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And although I was very intentional and it was coming from my heart of hearts, I did not see or know a way that I could make that happen. And I thought it would be something that I constructed, some business, some idea, some recognition, like somebody would pay for me to come do some work with them or something like that. And maybe I could parlay that into an ongoing situation. But it didn't really happen like that. I had been I was invited to St. Thomas by my prayer partner who lived there at the time. And she was transitioning out. She had been asking me a long time, girl, just come visit me. I was so content, my little hamlet in Northeast Louisiana. Child, I was like living in the monastery. It was so perfect. Just
Wow.
me, myself, and I, and watching roses bloom. I mean, it was magnificent, quiet. And I love country life. And so I was just like right in the pocket, right? Just like a good go-go beat, just right in the pocket. I didn't need nothing. And she invited me. And while I was there, something very mystical happened, which is not the
Mm-hmm.
first mystical experience I've had, but I felt an invitation inside to do something that I had spoken of like many, many decades before. I was one of those kids at ORU that was what you might call like sold out for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I meant to give God everything, and I meant everything. And I didn't know what all that meant, but many a Sunday I would find myself on my face just saying, here am I, Lord, send me.
Mm-hmm.
And I meant it. There was a huge map on the wall, covered the entire wall, like maybe 10-foot wall. And every day, every time we gather in that congregation, I would look at that, and I felt like I was being called to say yes, like the yes was being pulled out of me. Although I didn't have any sense of the means of that, I didn't know any world travelers. There was
Mm-hmm.
no example of like even somebody who spoke other languages in my life. And so when I had that encounter in St. Thomas, it felt like the reckoning of a promise I gave when I was on my face, just prostrate before God, just like, yes, I'll go. Yes, I'll go. Yes, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
So then this encounter happened, and it's like, time to pay. You said you would go.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't have no job. I
Wow.
don't know how. I don't have a. I think I might have had a passport, but how? Where is the ticket? But you have to actually buy
Mm.
tickets, don't you? Or do they just give you tickets because God said go somewhere? Is that how it works? But I know I did not. I felt confident that I did not tell myself that.
Mm.
And so I was given a time and a procedure. This is all internal conversation. Come back to this beach, and I'm going to give you your promise, and you stand on that. So I
Mm.
go through this entire ritual process. When I lift myself up out of the water, it's almost like that story that we read about the dove when John the Baptist baptizes Jesus, and then this is my son in whom I'm well pleased.
Yes.
So I got my own dove inside that's like, hear ye, kind of thing. Like, here's a declaration.
Yes.
When I send you, I've sent
Mm.
you. You don't have to look around for nothing. I got it. I'm
Right.
paying the bills. And where I send you, you will go and just
Mm.
go. Okay. This is your guarantee. I got it. I know where I'm telling you to go. I won't lose you. Okay. I won't lose
Mm.
track of you. So I wanted to look cross eyed at God, but God's track record is pretty good with me. So I
Wow.
was like, okay. Now, I will say that early on in my life, my grandmother said, girl, you got crazy faith. So
Mm.
I want to acknowledge the privilege that I did come into this with an aptitude for impossible stuff.
Mhm.
Okay. And that wasn't foreign to me.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm out of St. Thomas. I'm back to regular life. Uh, Before I left there, though, I did say, okay, well, I'm curious. Where would you have me go? Spirit says Japan. I'm like, I don't want to go to Japan. That's the first thing that came up. I'm
Wow.
like, Japan? That's not on my list at all. But within a few days, a friend said, I've got work for you, remote work. And it lined up that first paycheck paid for that. And so
Mhm.
from there, like one thing fell into place after another. In the beginning, I didn't know where I was going. I had a country or a city or just a feeling. While I
Mm.
was in Japan, the next place came, and then the next place, and the next place. I didn't have like a list of countries like I want. Now I have places I like, but in terms of this, it was clear to me I'm being set out on a mission. What's the mission? To see how you really are. That didn't seem substantial enough. But 2.5 years later, I can tell you that all of these, and it's been 24 countries in two years.
Wow. Wow.
Um, I don't exactly know how it was paid. The math doesn't math, I will say that. Um, and there's been, it's like you could probably see it if you're like, oh, well, she probably does backpacker life. No, um, it has become a relationship to my faith that has gone beyond my wildest dreams, beyond my
Mm.
wildest expectations. It's built my confidence in the instruction that I hear in my heart. It's given me an authority with myself that, like, I can be loyal to that voice in my heart without kind of like, well, what do you think, Kendra? Do you think I should
Mm.
go?
Mhm.
Um, and regardless, of how, kind of flying in the face of what might seem proper or usual, especially as things politically are happening,
Mhm.
um, where it's like, I remember one time, this was just last year, I went to Japan again. It's the second time. And I thought, well, I'm going to spend time in Vietnam. All of Southeast Asia. I just want to be there for a while.
Mm.
I was scared to tell my mother how long I thought I might really be gone because I didn't know how much, our mamas are so sweet. And so
Mhm.
I was concerned about making her afraid or upsetting her, causing her to worry. And I wasn't really sure because when I got on that plane, I think I had $300.
Wow. Wow.
And we know what the
Mm.
facilitating deans pay is. We also know what the non-facilitating deans pay was, and that's what I was working with on a monthly basis. So
Mm.
there didn't seem to be the means, but over and over again, I have seen how I have had the most fabulous person to person encounters, internal encounters where just over and over again, a reckoning with my own humanity. How do I embrace my mission for a contributive life, for a generative faith that isn't just for my own satisfaction, but actually contributes to the environment around me? What's the reality of my mastery of that, my skill level with that? What's missing in my practice that will give me more consistency, more reliable? Like, what makes me laugh when I don't understand the language?
Mhm.
What's pissing me off when nobody said anything to me? What am I
Mhm.
really upset about? It's giving me the spaciousness to really observe myself for real and to take everything that I'm seeing and build practices that support what I'm obviously on the trajectory to become. So much of this is internal trust based that along the way, I've had to even take away what began as a reliance on God will provide for me to
Mhm.
kind of subversive knowing, even rebellion of like, I will not allow fear to the best of my ability. I'm not declaring no superpowers. To the best of my ability, I will not allow collective fear, anxiousness, even the lack of money to stop me from approaching my mission. And
Mhm.
I could cuss after that, so insert curse word.
Mhm.
Uh, I will take myself seriously as somebody who's got a job working for XYZ Corporation and has an expense account to
Mhm.
be anywhere they want to be in the world on mission.
Mhm.
I took each assignment as something real. Now here's what came out of it. um, in order to, so of those observances and attempts and experiments and practice on a daily basis in all these different places, I use nature and my encounters with people and my prayer life and my study life and my work at the seminary
Mhm.
to help me generate practices that felt like they could be transferable, useful to other people.
Mhm.
So the spiritual model, the monastery within,
Mhm.
I haven't offered one thing in writing anywhere, in a speech anywhere, that I have not wrestled and bled and cried to produce evidence for in my own life. How do people who are overcommitted, overextended, make space and time for a relationship with yourself that sustains you? Take spirit out of it. How do
Right.
you be with you in this world, as complex and complicated as the issues we face are, as our own minds and hearts are? How do we carve out a space, as Howard Thurman talks about, like the nerve center of your consent? How do you stay in touch with that nerve center so that my yes and my no actually means something to me and reveals something to the person I'm dealing with? So that's what the travel has really given me, is this body of work, not just of places I've been, but practices I've created, things that I've written, a platform I'm building to really gather, to produce space in people and for people to then take that on themselves, give themselves permission to stay in close relationship with their own peace, their own comfort, their own contentment. I remember Sadhguru said something. He said, part of the problem of religious people is that we attribute responsibility to God for the things that are well within our purview as
Mhm.
human beings. And that changed my life and put a different kind of responsibility on me. As a God focused person, a God loving person, how do I not sidestep my responsibility to myself and to this world and make it at the forefront? And travel has given me the spaciousness to keep it on that commitment on the front burner. So it's definitely a place of privilege, but it's not because of finance. It's really agency privilege
Mhm.
that I have been able to be rebellious enough against the ideas of exploitation and extraction of my time
Mhm.
and where I am in the world. I've also been given an incredible opportunity through the seminary to work remotely so that I could generate enough of a seed that
Mm-hmm.
I could keep some things going. But I have to say that the income alone has never been enough to make the travel make sense, or to make it be something I could just be like, sure, I can do that. I've been
Mm-hmm.
terrified every time. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
should I do this? Can I do this? It's only been since the beginning of this year that I'm like, maybe I can lay the trepidation down. I still have questions, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't have to be terrified about it. I've got enough evidence
Mm-hmm.
to either know that yes is possible and to deal with no if that's what needs to happen too.
I love that. Thank you for this insight that faith isn't just for our individual progress and elevation. It is
Mm,
about how we contribute to the lives of others, how we
yeah.
support them in their own spaciousness as they unfold into this living experience. What are the countries that you've been to? If you can, I know you said you've been to like 24. You may not remember all 24 right now, but what are some of the countries that you've been to?
Egypt and Morocco, Japan, Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Belize, Guatemala, uh, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, uh, the UK, France, Spain, Portugal,
Mm.
Austria. There's probably a couple more I'm not catching. But
Yeah, yeah, there are plenty more that you're not catching. What,
yeah.
what have you learned about the human condition traveling to all these different countries?
Ooh, we absolutely are in every single way all the same.
Mm,
Loneliness is identifiable everywhere. A mother's concern, I don't care what, like, I know exactly what that mother's saying to her child by the tone of voice, by the way the child is responding. Hunger looks the same, sadness looks the same,
mm,
joy is the same. Um, Togetherness, right? Intimacy, seeing couples holding hands in Japan is the same as seeing them in my hometown of
mm,
LA. We really are all the same, and that I am also the same, which means that being in another place doesn't remove the things about me that I don't enjoy
mm.
or that I'm not totally in love with. It might even amplify them. And so part of what it's done is given me the space to make more room for my humanity and their humanity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I love that. I could talk for another hour about your travels. I gotta have you so I can do that. Tell me about your latest work, To the Bone, a Soul Spa Self Check In. What
this
inspired you
is
to write that?
This is something that was created in my heart last year. I was in Thailand and just like, what does devotion look like when you're not coupled? On for Valentine's Day. Like, I don't just want a Galentine's Day kind of alternative. I want something like what would the how would I want to spend a Valentine's Day with a loved one? What's the level of intimacy I might expect or hope for? And is that accessible without a partner?
Mm,
And just the contemplation gave me the words like loyalty, right? That that expression of togetherness, of oneness, is really one of like, I'm here for you, I've got you,
mhm,
as you are right now. And the loyalty as a starting point for the devotion. I'm building that devotion on the back of loyalty. Loyalty to what? Loyalty to the desire to be seen. Loyalty to the
mhm,
desire to be acknowledged, to be known. That I would let that be present whether I'm partnered or not. It wouldn't just be irrelevant because there's nobody there to deal with that. And so by studying about how have the writers that I love addressed oneness, loneliness, devotion, intimacy, becoming, and what were my particular internal spiritual emotional needs at the time. And from that, I built a kind of practice for the day. Um, and I was like, well, one thing I'd like to do is just give myself all the experiences I enjoy, as much as I could in a day without overwhelming myself. Because, sometimes self care is overwhelming if you think about it from the place of like, what should I be doing
Yes.
right now? And the shoulds get in the way of, like, again, back to that optimizing kind of a perspective rather than meeting myself right where I am. So I have crafted these recipes for different parts of the day for creating beautiful space inside and outside to just hold this recognition that this heart, this internal space, what Howard Thurman called the nerve center of our consent, what Maya Angelou called inviolability, right? There's something about me, I think we call it spirit or our soul or something, that is untouched by the world and is forever redeemable. And so, how do I pay attention to that? That seems like a beautiful day to take the permission to tap in with that. So, the check in isn't how am I doing only, the check in is what's my relationship to my own soul? And how can I use the collective consciousness around love and Valentine's Day and the celebration of intimacy to spend some time with the me that only I know? And that's something that travel gave me too, is like, I know something about me that I could never reveal to anybody, I think. And so I love that relationship. That's a real thing. It's not in spite of. It is something that is born of a high level of skill and consistency, reliably observing my own mind, my own heart, my own decisions. That hunger to be known and to be seen can be satisfied by my own attention. I can satisfy that need for intimacy in the place that needs it most, in the place that needs the permission the most. My attention to go all the way there, to take it right to the heart of the matter. And so it's really a permission slip and a little bit of guidance for how we might get to the very heart of our hearts, how we might get to spend time um, lavishing love on the us that only we know, and really celebrating the uniqueness by just indulging it. Quick example. I love eating, drinking, anytime I get to eat a flower. Man, hibiscus tea, rose flavored ice cream, what have you. So I was like, well, obviously, part of what makes me feel good is if I get to have any of that stuff. So much of the check in is about the preparation to serve that part that goes so under acknowledged, underserved, even marginalized by us. The world didn't have to do it because we've picked up those extractive, exploitive mindsets. So it's really a day to see how you're doing with that. Does something need to be composted? Does something need to be shed? Do I need to embrace an aspect of myself that feels neglected? And to do it in a way that's not like all in one day, but just a touch point that we can keep coming back to again and again. So Valentine's Day was the excuse. But I think of it as, like, for me, I do it as a quarterly check in. How am I
I
doing?
love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Where can people go find To the Bone?
It is, if they go to my Instagram page, it's in a link in bio in
Okay.
there. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Perfect. This is my last question.
Oh, man,
I know. It is this has
you're a
been
good
wonderful.
time, friend.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So if you could go back and tell the little Aaliyah who was Pentecostal about the journey that was getting ready to unfold in her life, what would you tell her?
You have nothing to be afraid of.
Mm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, nothing to be afraid of. that I could never be lost, but I can enjoy being found over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over in all kinds of places, all kind of ways,
Mm-hmm.
finding myself again and again and again. And also that there was a place for everything inside of me. I think that's probably the most precious revelation of it all, Kendra. When I took myself to Peru, I forgot Peru and Ecuador. Okay, there's a couple more.
Yeah.
Um, I went to Lake Titicaca, as you might remember, and
Uh-huh.
part of me went because that inner 9-year old was like, "You're not gonna take me." I'm like, "Just watch. I'm take you to Lake Titicaca." She was cold as heck, but anyway,
Wow.
after that, I felt such a level of integration in my own heart and mind. Like the
Mm.
9-year old felt at enough peace to just kind of integrate itself into this adult reparenting Aaliyah. And there's something about that entire experience that young Pentecostal Aaliyah felt like there was just no way that there was a place for all of me to
Mm.
be inside of me. I just knew that there was going to have to be sacrifice because that's what we were taught. Um, and I didn't know which part of me wasn't acceptable. But
Mm.
I know now that not only is God not offended by my humanity, but is counting on it for
Mm.
me to reveal the love inherent in our lives, in the universe. And I mean power love, not sentimentality love. I mean the conductive force of the universe. That law I was talking about can
Yeah.
also be called love, as we said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not asking me to cut away parts of myself to be acceptable.
Yes.
That what I'm asked to do is with my breath, with my dreams, with my ambitions, with people like you I get to work with,
Mm-hmm.
to integrate more and more of myself and that love, and to do it with a little bit of like, I get to. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do.
I love it. I love it. It has been such a gift to be in conversation with you, in conversation with you. And for those that tapped in, make sure you go follow Rev Aaliyah at rev.aaliyah on Instagram. Make sure you hit her up on the Monastery Within on Instagram as well. Check out To the Bone, a soul spot check-in, and make sure you come back and see KYNDversations next Wednesday at 5 p.m. At 5 a.m. rather. Thank you all for being present, and we look forward to seeing you all real soon. Peace.
Peace.